What's up, everyone? Good morning. Welcome to the Shaw Local Bears Insider podcast. I am Kyle Nabors along with Sean Hammond here to get you ready for week 3. We got Bears Texans on Sunday afternoon, Sean, and we're just going to dive in this week, guys, because I've been waiting to talk all week about this. We didn't get a chance on Monday, and that's my fault. Apologies. Anyone who was hoping to have us recap Bears versus Packers had a scheduling conflict on Monday to where we couldn't do it. But I've been waiting all week, Sean, to talk with you because I really don't know what to make of this Bears team through 2 weeks of the season. Do you have any more insight than I do? Because it's a complete mystery.
Well, yeah, they looked good on that first drive, and then there was a whole lot of not good the rest of that game offensively. And through 2 games here, we're looking at an offense that has struggled. Even in that game it won, in week 1 against the 49ers, it struggled mightily. And we've seen the struggles that defense has had against the run so far in these first 2 games. They're near the bottom of the league against the run, and that's going to be an issue. And they got to work some things out offensively. I don't think anybody was particularly impressed with what they saw against the Packers.
Yeah, make sure you follow Sean on Twitter at Sean_Hammond. You can follow myself on Twitter at Kyle Nabors. All of our content is available on Twitter as well, or links to it if you follow Bears at Bears_Insider. Of course, you can go straight to shawlocal.com to find all of our content. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube as well, give us a thumbs up and like the video, please. It really helps anyone who is watching find the video on YouTube. It's a big help for us. And I want to just dive into questions here because Rick Gonzalez, a regular on the show, already had a question in the chat this morning. We appreciate it, Rick. And it really kind of is a good summation of how I feel about this team right now, because I read the question and just kind of went, I have no idea, man. But it's what do you guys think is more of a concern going forward? O-line, pass protection, or D-line stopping the run? Sean, go ahead.
I'm going to go with the D-line stopping the run. I mean, they've already showed, there's a blueprint out there already for how you can move the ball against the Bears. And that's going to be an issue. And you wonder about not having, a big dude like Akeem Hicks there in the middle. That's a concern. And you need to see improvement in that area if you're going to beat anybody. And I know that the offensive line has had some issues, but I also think that, I should say the expectations weren't particularly high for this offensive line. I don't know if that should color your perception of this, but it does. It does for me anyway. I didn't have high expectations for that offensive line. I kind of expected them to have some issues. I kind of tend to think that they're going to get better and better as the season goes on, as young guys like Braxton Jones and Larry Borum get more reps.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive line, and it's everything is a microcosm of these first 2 weeks. When you look at like week 1, they start out really poor at the start of the game against San Francisco, got better as the week went on. And I think that led all of us to believe, hey, maybe the offensive line is in better shape than we thought going into the season. And then last week happened, and it was definitely a step back for the offensive line. Now you see Lucas Patrick is snapping the ball with the club off his right hand. We really don't know going into this game what adjustment the Bears are going to make to their offensive line. We don't know if Lucas Patrick will be at center or back at right guard. If, obviously that has a big impact, whether Sam Mustipher is starting, whether Tevin Jenkins is starting. Sean, as we sit here on Friday morning, we got another practice here at Halasaw this afternoon. Matt Eberflus will address the media as well, but do you have any insights of how you think this offensive line is going to shake out on Sunday?
Well, it's really hard to know because they're not going to tell us. We've seen that since Matt Eberflus took over. They're going to be really guarded about injuries. They're going to be guarded about who's playing where and not say anything more than they need to. I think the fact that Lucas Patrick is snapping the ball this week, and we saw him snap the ball, 2 different days, that's telling me that he's probably going to play center. There's a chance he might have a negative reaction with his thumb and say, it's just too painful at this point. Let's wait another week. But I tend to lean towards he's going to be playing center. And then where it becomes really interesting is what do they do at right guard? Because I wouldn't count out the possibility that Sam Mustipher is going to be involved over there, whether that's through a continued timeshare with Tevin or whether that just sends Tevin to the bench. I think that's a real possibility. We have to see, come Sunday morning. We don't really know, and we won't because we don't get to see much of practice. But I think Bears fans should at least prepare themselves for the possibility that Sam Mustipher could still be in that starting lineup.
Yeah, I think there's a fairly high chance that Sam Mustipher is in the starting lineup come Sunday. I think the Bears want to go with the line that they feel gives them more stability. I think long term, Tevin Jenkins probably gives them more upside at the position than Sam Mustipher. I don't think that's really going out on a limb there. But right now, I think they need to find some stability, not just along the offensive line, but stability along the offensive line will allow the pass game to be a little bit better, theoretically, at least. I mean, you're looking at through 2 weeks of the season, one of the worst passing offenses in modern NFL history. Now, I understand week one was something that was unavoidable with that weather, but you're talking about a game in Green Bay last week where the Bears trailed for a significant chunk of it, and I believe was 11 pass attempts for Justin Field, right?
Yeah, that's what it came down to.
Yeah,
11 pass attempts. They probably called 19 or 20 pass plays, and there were a couple sacks and a couple scrambles in there.
See, and this is the kind of uphill battle for Sam Mustipher, at least in the eyes of Bears fans. Why Musty is horrible, Sam Mustipher is horrible. Sam Mustipher is not horrible. Now, he isn't great by any means. He's probably, as we said, you look at any chart, he's pretty much league average. The question here, and this is what we're talking about, do you want league average, knowing that that's probably the upside that you're getting out of that? You're not getting any better with Sam Mustipher. Or do you want Tevin Jenkins in there while the floor is a lot lower, particularly in the short term? The ceiling long term is higher. It's a really tough decision to make in my eyes, Sean, because it impacts the development of Justin Fields.
Yeah, long term, you probably want Tevin to be at that position. That's there's high upside there, and he can keep improving. But you have to look at this from the perspective of the coaches, and you're looking at a guy who's played right guard for a handful of weeks. And you look at Sam Mustipher, and he's a guy who has started 20 plus games in the NFL. He's been a starter for 2 years for this team. Now, yes, most of that was at center, but they coached him up to play guard. Remember, before Lucas got hurt, before the thumb injury, Sam Mustipher was playing a lot of right guard. I would say he was almost exclusively playing right guard with maybe a snap or two thrown in there at center, but he was playing a lot of right guard. Just in talking with offensive line coach Chris Morgan yesterday on Thursday, they're really impressed with everything he's done. Sam has done every single thing that this coaching staff has asked of him. And while Tevin has, maybe surprised a little bit at right guard and his ability to pick that up quickly, I don't know that they look at Tevin with the same confidence that they do with Sam, as far as just, is he going to be able to get this done this week?
Yeah, I see Robert Phillips, regular to the show, had said, did you see the down where Tevin walked that player off the field beyond the sidelines? Love it. That is one thing that always goes in Tevin Jenkins' favor, is that guy plays with a lot of fire. It works. It's a double-edged sword with Tevin, where, when he's had some kind of good reinforcement, positive reinforcement, he does tend to play with that fire more and more, and he tends to go into his shell a little bit when things don't go his way. But the thing is, like, for all those plays that you see, Robert, like, it's the missed plays that are more apparent when it comes between Tevin Jenkins or Sam Mustipher. And that's the thing that the Bears are going to have to figure out.
And you have to point out too that Sam misses plays too. They both miss plays. And that's why I think we also shouldn't count out the possibility that they could just keep rotating two guys at right guard and get Tevin some snaps, while also keeping Sam in game shape and giving him a look at a position that he hasn't played a ton either at right guard.
How do you think through 2 weeks, as I'm trying to pull up a depth chart here because I want to look at something for the Bears, how do you think the offensive tackles have played through 2 weeks?
It's like a lot of these positions. There's been good moments and bad moments. I thought Larry Borum played better in the first game than in the second. I thought Braxton has been generally pretty good, especially considering, where he's coming from as a fifth round rookie out of Southern Utah. There's certainly potential there. I think there's maybe a little bit more confidence in Braxton at this point than in Larry. But not necessarily by much.
Sorry, I got one thing is when you try to look through comments here to steer the conversation, sometimes you get distracted, Sean. So we're looking.
I'm with you. Sure. And keep the comments coming, guys. We love it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's just sometimes I look through to try and figure out where we're going to go next, and I get sidetracked here. Robert had said 1-1 after the first 2 games is better than anyone expected. To be honest, Yeah, I mean, you look at the first 2 weeks, I think most people, including myself, figured the Bears were going to be 0-2. Now, I don't think the San Francisco 49ers are as nearly as good as I anticipated coming into the season. Once again, throw out that week 1. They did not look good in week 2. Trey Lance now on IR. Jimmy Garoppolo back, which actually might be an upgrade with the way things look with Trey Lance.
I think they might be better now this year, given what happened with the injury. Long term, I don't know about that, but just looking at this year, they might have improved their ceiling for this season a little bit.
So, okay, now definitely, I think so. The thing I was looking for that I forgot earlier, I want to go back to now. I asked you about the offensive tackles because one thing I think the Bears could do if you see another week where they struggle to get the pass game going is that they could look at making a switch at tackle with Riley Reif is on the bench. Riley Reif is known as a guy that really has struggled in his career against for run blocking, but has been really good in pass protection. The Bears could decide that, they need more help with pass protection, that Riley Reif is a veteran, to give that guy or give him a chance and take the hit on the run protection, knowing that they're good pretty much elsewhere along the line. I'm not saying that's certainly not happening this week, but if they struggle against the Houston Texans, I think that is a path that they could look into, Sean.
Well, yeah, that's one possibility. And keep in mind, they got Alex Leatherwood in their back pocket. He's not going to be available until after week 4. He's on the non-football illness list. But he's certainly a guy that when he does get back, I would not be shocked to see him worked in, whether that's at guard or tackle. He's a high potential dude, former first round pick. Now the problem is, if he's missed a lot of practice. He hasn't been there at all. We haven't seen him in the locker room, and the reports are that he's dealing with mono, so that's not necessarily a surprise that they're keeping him away. So maybe it takes a little time to get back into game shape after going through that. But down the line, I could see that being a possibility too.
Yeah. Robert said, can we really judge our offense accurately after the monsoon game and Packers away? No, that's what makes this maybe not difficult to discuss this week, but it definitely makes it more cloudy because listen, I mean, if the Bears go out and have a bad offensive game against this Houston Texans team, it's going to be a real long year.
That would tell you a lot more than the first 2 weeks.
Yeah. So let's look at that. Where do you think? I mean, obviously David Montgomery, that's going to be the game plan. They're going to use this run game against Houston, but we need to see. Maybe balance isn't the right word because if the ground game is working, if you have the lead, leaning on David Montgomery is fine. But you need to see more explosive plays out of the offense. You need to see Justin Fields with a bit better decision making, a little quicker clock, and you need Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet to be involved in this offense, right?
I would expect that they will make an effort early in this game to get the ball in Mooney and Kmet's hands. Just to ease some of that tension a little bit and just say these are our best guys. Throw them the ball right away. The other thing too is. They need to possess the ball a little bit longer. They have 41 plays in that game against the Packers. And part of that was just because they kept shooting themselves in the foot on first down throughout much of that first half. And they weren't able to get, hardly any first downs after that first drive. And when you're in that situation, you're not, you don't have the ball for very, very long time. And that's partially why it looks so bad with the 11 pass attempts is they just didn't have a lot of plays in that game. And, they were close to 50-50 pass run. And at least in terms of what the actual call was, not necessarily the result of the play. You can't get any rhythm when you're not getting first downs. And I think you look at that 49ers game too, a couple of weeks ago, they couldn't run the ball in the first half. And I think what we need to see from the Bears is David Montgomery get going a little bit earlier because that's going to ease a lot of the pressure on that passing attack. Yeah, I mean,
Matt Eberflus liked to point that they kept going with the run because it was working, but there was long stretches of that game where actually, I mean, the first drive, stupendous, right? Like that comes out in that fashion. The Bears come out in that fashion, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, like this might be a thing," right? Mm-hmm. And then it's like. The Packers were like, no, that's not happening today, guys. And the Bears there was no adjustment really made, and nothing was working in that first half. And yeah, it's great that David Montgomery got going in the second half, but you look at that drive where they end up getting stuffed at the 1 yard line, and it's not really worth at this point rehashing the play call there, right? I don't think. But the thing is, they ran 11 plays on that drive. 9 of them were runs. The 2 pass plays were incompletion. The Bears are down 14 points there in the second half. The Green Bay Packers like, listen, if you want to run the ball 9 times on a drive, go right ahead. That's not going to work long term for the Bears.
Yeah, and teams, other teams are going to be okay doing that. If that's, especially if you have a lead late in the game, they're going to be okay with letting the Bears do that. And, I don't want to get into the 4th down play a whole lot, but it just came down to bad execution. You watch that play, the blocking was all messed up. Lucas Patrick was coming around from right guard swinging all the way around and just bumped into his own tight end and didn't really get a block on anybody. So I'm fine with the call, but they just got to do it better.
I'm laughing at a get pace on the phone Komet for Pitts.
Ooh, that's juicy.
I know that Ryan Pace does love him some Cole Komet, but I don't think they're giving up Kyle Pitts anytime soon. What? Now let's say renewable, rechargeable. Quinn for New York for wide receiver Galladay. That is, I will say, we're not to the point where really any NFL teams are ready to make trades yet, but I do think Kenny Galladay is a guy that's going to be on the block. Obviously, the Bears had interest in him before he signed with the Giants, but that was an old regime. And Ryan Pace,
yeah.
Listen, I as an NIU alum, I love Kenny Galladay. He's also a St. Rita guy. I think that'd be a really cool story. I don't think you want to take on. I honestly don't even know what is left on Kenny's contract in terms of guaranteed money. I just don't know with the way things have gone there, his inability to stay on the field, and they're not exactly a great team. The New York Giants, the fact that he wasn't, I think he was active, but didn't play last week. Don't quote me on that. I'm going to go look that up, Sean, as you, do you think any thought on that?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the contract now. Yeah. He's through 24. I mean, let's see. It's not a ton of guaranteed money, to be honest. I mean, there's no guaranteed money in 24. 4.5. I'm looking at over the cap. 4.5 million in 23. Maybe, but I will say I do think. I think the way that Ryan Poles has looked at this Bears team, particularly this year, and the way he's approached building his team. Even though the Bears have a weak spot on the schedule here, they got the Texans, they got the somehow 2-0 Giants. The Vikings and Commanders. I think he's going to throw out the record when that trade deadline comes up. I think a guy like Robert Quinn could be on the line, even if they're hovering around 500 or potentially in the hunt for a playoff spot, because you have to look at this long term. And that's the way Ryan Poles has looked at everything. And I don't think that changes just because of their record.
My golf buddy, good friend and fellow NIU alum said, I believe Galladay just didn't play. I think he'd be revived in a new setting.
Yeah, maybe
that's definitely possible, Mike. I'd like to think so. And then CJ Kyle, NIU alum, 2006 CJ, go Huskies. Yeah, go Huskies, right? Need them to play a little better than they have against Vanderbilt and Tulsa. Not looking good against Kentucky this week. So here we go, though, Sean. Earlier, someone had said that the Bears, obviously pointed out that the Bears are 1-1 better shape than they could. Shane Jackson's going to join us here in about 10 minutes for Bet Chicago Sports and talk about some sports betting angles for Bears versus Texans. But the Bears go into this game as the favorite against a really, really young, rebuilding Houston Texans squad. I guess I can say that about the Bears, though, right? The Bears, I believe, are a 3-point favorite. Last I had looked. I mean, there's a solid chance that this team comes out at 2-1.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, they're certainly, especially at home, they should be favored in this game. I look at these rosters and I think these are pretty evenly matched teams. Certainly, I think the quarterback position should be an advantage for the Bears, but I'm not feeling particularly confident about this game either. I mean, this is a Bears offense that has struggled mightily, and you need to see them perform against a defense that they should be able to score some points on. If they're not able to do that, we're going to have some serious concerns on Monday. If they are, I think they win this game.
I mean, you're talking about a defense that there are not a ton of recognizable names on this Houston Texans defense. I mean, Christian Kirksey came over and is in that middle linebacker position, came over from Green Bay in the offseason, a nice get for them. They're starting 2 safeties like the Bears, and 2 defensive backs, similar to the Bears in the secondary there with Jalen Petre and Derek Stingley Jr. Both guys that I like long term, but it's the same type of thing where you saw Aaron Rodgers last week against Kyler Gordon, said, okay, that's who I'm going at. I mean, the Bears should be able to look at these rookies and try and take advantage of an inexperienced back end secondary for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, if you learned anything from that game last week, watching Aaron Rodgers do what he did and attack Kyler Gordon over and over and over again, the Bears should be doing the exact same thing with those young guys, with Derek Stingley, with Jalen Petrie in Houston's secondary. And I don't know that I feel confident that that's what they're going to do, but they certainly should be taking notes when they see Aaron Rodgers do something like that.
Rick points out Texans 26 versus the run, 10th against the pass. I will say that, I mean, Rick, through 2 weeks, just remember that is a really small sample size. I usually say we don't know how good a team is and what they're capable of until about after week 6. Frankly, I think that the Texans are probably going to finish in the bottom half against both the pass and the run. This is a game where the Bears really should be able to do what they want offensively and be able to execute. Like Darnell Mooney, if Darnell Mooney doesn't come out of this game with 6 to 8 targets at minimum, I'm going to be really concerned about the Bears offense moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. They just need to get him the ball more. And they've talked about that, they talked about that in the immediate aftermath of that Packers loss. What can you do to get the ball? And Justin's like, just call more plays for him. Give him those looks where he's the number one option, and you can get a quick pass out to him and let him. It might not be a huge gain, it might not be a deep ball, but just get the ball in his hands and let him make a couple of moves out there.
I'd like to see the Bears play with more tempo, a little upbeat in this game too. 41 plays as they ran last week against the Green Bay Packers. I mean, you can't do that if you're a modern NFL offense. Now, part of that is dictated by the fact that the Bears defense couldn't get off the field. The Packers were able to run the ball very effectively against them. But even so, I mean, the Bears had too many 3-and-outs. Luke Getsy said that, we have to sustain drive. We have to give ourselves chance. I mean, there was too often in that game where the Bears just couldn't even flip the field. They're starting inside their own 20 over and over. That shouldn't happen again this week against the Houston Texans. And if it does, like I said, it doesn't bode well moving forward, Sean.
No, it certainly doesn't. You got to move the ball against this Houston team. And this is an opportunity here at home to, like you said, Kyle, to get to 2-1, get some confidence early in this season. This is the type of game where, a good team wins this game, and we're going to find out if that's what the Bears are at this point.
Well, you don't even have to be a good team. You just have to execute.
A competent team?
Yeah, I mean, for both of these teams, it's going to come down to who executes better on Sunday. And of course, like always, in-game adjustments are key. And that's one area that we don't quite know what to make of this Bears coaching staff yet. It's only 2 games. Small sample size. Now you could say it's only 2 games. It's only been 2 games for the Houston Texans, but we do have a pretty good idea of what Lovie Smith wants to do, right? And I don't expect them to try and throw the ball more against the Bears. Like Davis Mills, nice, but you're not gonna expose him too much, I don't think. I expect the Texans, particularly after they look at the film that the Bears have on tape here against the Packers last week, I expect the Texans to come out running the ball. Do you expect the Bears to be able to have a better more success stopping the run than they did last week?
Well, keep in mind too that those first 2 games, yes, they didn't perform well against the run, but they were playing a 49ers team who runs it down everybody's throat, and they were playing a Packers team that's got 2 pretty darn good running backs. Aaron Jones was ridiculous in that game. And while yes, rookie running back Dameon Pierce has looked impressive, for a rookie who's out there starting, and he wasn't a high draft pick. I think he was 4th round, maybe. While yes, he's off to a good start, this is not necessarily a fearsome backfield. Dameon Pierce and Rex Burkhead is your other running back. They shouldn't necessarily be running all over you. And I don't think they will, to the extent that Aaron Jones was in week 2 and to the extent that the 49ers were able to in week 1.
Robert says, how do you guys think Roequan has been performing so far? Sean, I'll let you start on that one.
Yeah, I'm still kind of in wait and see mode. I'm not ready to blow that up yet, just because or to blow that out of proportion, because, you know, it's a new scheme. He's kind of in a different role than what he did. You know, it's a similar role, but there's differences to what he did in the old scheme. I'm willing to wait and see what this looks like, you know, in week 8, 9, 10, and down the line, assuming he stays healthy. We don't know he's been out with a hip injury this week, so we don't know if he's going to play in this game at this point. We'll know later today on Friday. But Alan Williams, the defensive coordinator, was kind of preaching patience when we asked him about this, and you know, I'm willing to give him that for a few more weeks.
Yeah, the comments here not very nice for Roequan through 2 weeks here. One of the nicer one I guess I can put up here is Rick just says he looks heavy. I assume when you say heavy, you mean kind of like slow, sluggish Rick, because that's kind of the way I've looked at it through 2 weeks. He's just not quite as instinctive as we're used to seeing Roquan Smith play at, or I don't think he's out there not trying to make plays. I think it is a new system a little bit. But that being said, for a guy that wants $100 million reportedly, you know, that's not a great start. You need him to be the type of playmaker, impact player that gets that type of contract. He hasn't been that guy through 2 weeks. I do think Sean is right though, that, you know, if this continues come week 8 or week 9, then yeah, it's an issue, but I wouldn't read too much into it so far.
And look, he sat out 3-4 weeks of training camp. You know,
Yeah.
I know guys talk about showing up to training camp in shape. And yes, every athlete wants to do that, but there's no replacing being out there 5 days a week for 3-4 weeks. And he just wasn't there. I know he was working out on the side, but it's not the same as being out there playing football. You know, whether you're actually tackling or not. And so, you know, maybe we might see this start to turn around here week 3, week 4, as he kind of gets through his own little version of training camp.
I'm trying to find the comment now. Someone had asked about who was taking the backup snaps with Roequan out. Now that can be a bit tough. Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
I was just saying, yeah, I saw that question earlier. I'm going to revert to, you know, I know there's a lot of excitement for Jack Sanborn, a local guy. I'm going to revert to that starting lineup when Roequan was not there for the preseason, and they had Joe Thomas and Nicholas Morrow and Matt Adams in that starting lineup, at least in the base defense. I would look for those guys. I'm not necessarily expecting to see Jack Sanborn, although they like what they've seen from him, and he's been really good on special teams. I would look for Joe Thomas and Matt Adams to get more snaps if Roquan's not able to go with the hip injury.
All right, before we bring Shane Jackson in to join the show, Sean, I got one more question for you. It's kind of pulling a bunch of questions together here. Can you give us an update though on the injury report for the Bears going into Friday?
You know what? I should know. Joe Thomas is on the practice squad. I was just thinking that over as I was saying that. So maybe he's a guy they call up. Maybe that is a good sign for Sanborn. I don't know. I guess we'll have to kind of see. Yeah, I was just thinking that through. The injury report though, yeah, Roequan is the big concern. Hip injury. Hasn't practiced this week. That's obviously not good. If he practices Friday, that's a positive development. If he doesn't, I would not expect to see him play. Velus Jones is again still kind of working back. He was limited on Thursday, so that's a good sign. You know, it's been hit or miss with him. We've seen him come back before, so I'm not necessarily expecting him to play in this game, just because we did this whole thing like a week ago and he didn't play. Other than that, let's see. Yeah, Matt Adams is dealing with a hamstring injury. That is a little bit of a concern there, I guess, at linebacker. Dan Cruikshank, he's more of a special teams guy. He has been out as well with a hamstring injury. Ryan Griffin, the tight end, has missed time with an Achilles injury. And that one's interesting to me because usually when you say Achilles, you either tore your Achilles or you didn't. But, you know, he'd be on IR if he tore his Achilles. So, and he's been around. We saw him in the locker room. We'll have to see what goes on there. But that could be a good sign for Cole Kmet if that means he's going to get a couple more snaps. Jalen Johnson limited with a quad injury. I'm not concerned about that. I think he'll be fine. He practiced the day before. So that's kind of where they're at with injuries. I know in Houston, Davis Mills is listed with a thumb injury, but he has continued to practice through that.
Really quickly here before Shane jumps on, Brent had asked, how is Hub doing? Got any update for us? I actually plan on giving Arthur, Hub's son, a call later this afternoon. I don't know if everyone here is on Twitter, but Arthur did tweet earlier this week that Hub did undergo successful surgery. Don't have any update past that right now. Like I said, maybe on Monday I'll be able to give you guys a little bit more of an update on Hub's doing, but positive steps this week with successful surgery. So, but all right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and bring in Shane Jackson now to join us. Shane Jackson, of course, leading our content over there at Bet Chicago Sports. Shane, man, how'd week 2 treat you?
Again, hit or miss. I was not good on the sides this time, and I was pretty good on the totals. I knew it was going to be a rough day when I had money on Carson Wentz and Baker Mayfield on Sunday.
Yeah,
that's my only spread bets. So it was a tough week to bet sides, and those were the only 2 games I felt confident about. The market ended up moving in my favor, but obviously didn't lead to wins on the field, which is all that people really care about. So hopefully for a better week 3, do like the slate for week 3.
It was unfortunate because with the Bears not playing on Sunday, either in the noon or 3 o'clock slot, it was great because I got to watch more football games, but that also meant I got to watch the Carson Wentz experience that you're describing. And between him and Matt Ryan, man, just some bad quarterbacking.
Yeah, in that Commanders game, they didn't have a first down until midway through the second quarter after they were down 22-0. It was a brutal experience. And I also teased that game, and the missed point after attempt at the end cost the teaser. So it was just a brutal experience all the way around.
Sorry about that, man. Hopefully things go better for you this week. We, of course, have you on to talk Bears Texans here today. And to me, I know – I guess the way I want to put this here is you get a lot of in town or like if you're a fan of a certain team, like you have your own expectation. It's nice to have you on because you get an outsider's perspective, a more analytical perspective with the way Vegas is approaching things. Right. A lot of people, at least in Chicago, kind of view this as a winnable game, a game that the Bears should win. And I'm having trouble getting to that point. Like, I do think the Bears will win the game, but I think it's more of a toss-up. When you look at the Vegas trend so far in this game this week, how have the markets reacted to this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, the odds would agree with you, right? It's sitting at 2.5 right now. Anytime it's touched 3, really, it's kind of influential money is probably pounced on the Texans with the idea that, hey, I'm going to bet against the idea that Bears can win by more than a field goal in this game. So I think the odds in Vegas agree with you that it's this line's probably going to stay below a field goal, close at like 2.5, and that's essentially a toss-up. They're saying that on a neutral field, these teams are closer to dead even than probably most people expect because home field advantage isn't what everyone thinks it is. It's 3 points or whatever. It's probably closer to 2 points, but that means that on a neutral field, they're saying maybe a slight edge to the Bears, and the reason why it's 2.5 is because it's in Chicago.
Sean, CJ asked, why wasn't Vilas placed on IR to be brought back? Seemed like we could have used the roster spot.
Yeah, I mean, that just tells me that they were expecting him to be back for, possibly week 3. And that still could be the case. He did practice in a limited capacity yesterday. I think that was probably just optimism about his situation and hopefully that hasn't changed, but obviously he hasn't been able to get on the field. So, that we'll see if he's on the field this week or next week. Then it worked out, but I guess you could say that was a situation where maybe they should have put him on IR.
Shane, Rick asks, over under 20 passes from Fields this week.
Yeah, that's actually super interesting because props open up really late in the week. I was just looking at it before I hopped on here, and I was expecting to take kind of over Justin Fields' passing attempts or completions or whatever because that's been the talk through 2 weeks, right? Is they haven't given him enough chances through the air. But his line is still at Caesar Sportsbook 25.5 passing attempts, which was a lot higher than I expected. Juice towards the over, I think minus 121. So on the over. So based off the number of 20, I would smash the over, right? Because the odds makers say it's 25.5. But it's tough to get there once we start talking about 25.5.
Yeah, 25. I mean, I I'd like to think that the Bears get over 25 half, or get over that 25.5 mark, Sean, this week. I guess no matter what, like I want to see the Bears in the 60 play range offensively this week.
Yeah.
41 is just way too low.
Well, if you're let's say they get 60 plays, and let's say they're right around 50-50, 30 pass, 30 run. Justin probably gets sacked 2 or 3 times and scrambles 3, 4, maybe even 5 times. Yeah, you're that 25 line is kind of making a little sense if you look at it that way. I'm in the camp where I'll believe it when I see it. I think they're going to keep pounding the run game. I would tend to lean towards the under on that, but I'm not much of a betting guy either.
Yeah, we talk about the over under on his pass attempts. With the way Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney have played in the first 2 weeks, Shane, or the lack of target that they've had, you probably don't have this info right in front of you, but like, is that causing like the markets to fall to the point where like you can get really low props on 2 guys like that and Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney?
It's actually interesting. It's probably affecting Cole Kmet more than Darnell Mooney. I think, the default is, hey, he's still the wide receiver 1. So eventually maybe those targets will come because his reception line is still 3.5 at Caesar Sportsbook, which is what it's been basically every single game. Cole Kmet, who was 3.5, I think, in week 1 against the 49ers when there was a lot of money coming in on the under in that game, it's now down to 2.5 for this week's matchup. So I think that is the one that it's affected the most, with the lack of attempts through the air and especially the targets for them. I think Cole Kmet is seeing the biggest impact from the odds standpoint.
I'm going to throw this question out to the crowd. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to hit that there. I want to throw this question out to the crowd though. Cole Kmet, 2.5 receiving receptions here this week. You guys taking the over? At some point, Cole Kmet has to get going, right, Sean?
I mean, yeah, at some point he has to catch a pass. He hasn't done that yet this season. If Ryan Griffin's out, that's going to present more opportunities for Cole. And I feel like the Bears hear it. They know that they got to get these 2 guys involved. I think they're going to give them each a pretty easy look early in this game.
Rick not mincing words. Kmet is a bum. Someone earlier, it might have been Rick, talking about he's like the new Adam Shaheen, which actually would be might be an improvement because I'm pretty sure Adam Shaheen has significantly more red zone touchdowns than Cole Kmet in his career. I mean, that's been the big thing for Sean, right? With Cole Kmet, like last year, 60 something catches. Was it 1 touchdown? Did he even reach
no
the end zone?
touchdowns? Yeah, no touchdowns. Yeah, I don't agree with that take. I mean, Adam Shaheen has never had 600 receiving yards. Cole Kmet he might have been, Shane, you might know this better than I do. Was he the most targeted tight end to not score a touchdown? He was certainly in that conversation last year.
I believe that's what the fantasy people said stats-wise. Every time they kind of talk about Cole Kmet and the buy low opportunity was like, hey, this is the only person that's ever done this and not scored a touchdown. So I think you're right.
It's Cole Kmet is such a divisive figure too, because I think the expectations were so high for him being taken in the second round. People immediately jumped to Travis Kelce or George Kittle, and like Cole Kmet is a solid tight end. Particularly, you look at the lack of depth at that position around the NFL right now. I know this is a fantasy perspective, right? But like, outside of Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, like it has kind of been a wasteland at the tight end position. Now you need more out of Cole Kmet than you've had these first 2 weeks, but I do think that you're going to get back to what you saw out of him last year in 2020, Sean. I do understand people's frustration. Like the ceiling that we all expected to be there is starting to feel farther and farther away.
And look, they just haven't thrown the ball a lot. And of course your tight ends aren't going to catch a lot when you're not really throwing the ball a whole lot. And at this point, Ryan Griffin, 1 catch. That's your only tight end catch for the team.
Shane, through 2 weeks, Bears offense not looking great. Is that not like? Let's take a. I want to get your idea here because the Bears could be 2-1 after this week, right? Has the way the Bears offense has operated? Is it doing anything to, I guess, like knock down future totals for the Bears? Like, what was it, 6.5 to start the year with the Bears over under, right? I don't even know. Can you still bet those after the season starts? Like, can you get up? You can get updated props,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Like that.
That's one of the best things about it, especially new with all the legalized gambling. They're like adjusting these win totals throughout the season. I think that's great.
So that's what I want to ask. Like, with the sample size we have, it's hard to parse it, but is Vegas parsing it in any way, or are they kind of just in a wait and see mode, leaving that line where it was?
Yeah, that's actually another thing I looked at this morning as well, because I was thinking about writing about something for shawlocal.com/bet. But basically, it's still 6.5, right? But it was crazy juice to the under, right? Like they were like taking so much money on the under that I think it was like minus 160, minus 170, or whatever it was, just to bet the under on the win total. Still 6.5 now after a 1-1 start, but it's minus 120, minus 125 at Caesar Sportsbook. So odds makers saying that, you know, maybe they're more willing to take the under money because they think that there's a chance that this gets to 7 wins, because it could be easily 2-1, as you mentioned, on Monday, and then you're, you know, a 2.5 3-point underdog against the Giants in week 4, and that's also essentially a toss-up spread. So like, these are winnable games early, and especially winning one where you weren't expected to win. I think Vegas has adjusted a little bit, but yeah, you're right. The offense is concerning in general, but maybe that's more of a way to attack them from a week-to-week basis on the total.
Mike says, Komet has no upside, but I think his floor is solid enough. Solid enough because he can block and catch an easy pass here and there, Sean. And I think that's it's a good point. And it's also kind of how I feel about most of this offense. And as the Bears embark on this rebuild, is like Cole Kmet, I think his floor is there. There's just not a lot of upside on this offense long term. Now, we knew that going into this season. Unfortunately, there just hasn't been a lot to kind of change your outlook after 2 weeks.
Yeah, you can't discount how much changing to a completely new offense is going to affect these guys. And Cole Kmet has obviously been affected as much as anyone. And you know, you go from a Matt Nagy offense that prioritized him, that wanted to draft him in the 2nd round and needed more production from that tight end spot. And this offense is just different from that. You know, they didn't draft him. They didn't, you know, and I'm not saying that they don't believe in him. I think they do, you know, they like him and they want to get him more involved, but they're going to have to make a little bit of an effort to do that.
Robert says, our receivers and tight ends are all doing better blocking, are all doing better on the blocking front for the run game this year. I think so. I think a lot of that, Robert, has to do with a new coaching staff. Matt Eberflus and his hit system really preaches talking about playing hard. You see that with the way that guys execute their block. They're certainly playing hard out there.
And that's just emphasis too. You know, I think this coaching staff in general emphasizes blocking for your receiver, particularly looking at the receivers. There's a lot more emphasis on blocking than there was under the old staff.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get out of here pretty soon. If you have any questions left for Sean or Shane, throw those in the chat. Shane, I want to really quickly here, though. Anything else on the Bears betting front that you're looking at this week?
Yeah, well, now I'm tempted to go back to the well a little bit and bet another over with the Bears game, as I did last week, and it did not work. It's down to 39. I think it touched 41 earlier in the week. But it just feels like, again, that's probably too low for a matchup where we think the offense should open up things a little bit more. And honestly, the over should have hit last week, right? If Justin Fields is ruled a touchdown on that 4th and goal, the over hits in a game with the Packers. I know that both these teams have been under teams through 2 weeks, but 39 is incredibly low. And as we saw last night in the Steelers-Browns game with a total of 38, sometimes that can lead to, you know, unexpected points and short field positions. So I am tempted to take the over in Sunday's game.
I actually like the over here as well for 2 reasons. One, as I was saying, I think the Bears need to push the tempo they're going to play. They just got to find out what they need. So I expect more scoring. And 2, you tend to get, when you get 2 bad teams playing each other, you tend to get bad shootouts. Now, they can go the other way where we have a score where it's like 17-6 or something miserable like that. But you saw that in week 1 with the Detroit Lions, Washington Commanders. Like, that game ended up having, I want to say, like 63, somewhere in that range point score. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but 39 is really low, Shane.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think I mean, I was already ready to bet the over last week when it was 42 or 43 or whatever it was. So yeah, I'm definitely thinking about it at 39.
Dr. Earl says, nope, sorry, that was the wrong one. I was looking for a sports betting one here. Mike Johnson says, are there any first quarter half point totals we might look at betting Sunday, Shane?
Yeah, well, so the half and the quarter are essentially the same thing. They don't have much of a, like, it's just basically you pick which team you think is going to get out to a better start. It's a half a point on the spread for the Bears and a slight favorite on the money line for the Bears in both the quarter and the half, which I guess the last couple weeks would suggest maybe taking the Texans because they haven't really started off too strong in the first 2 weeks. So, but no, those are like really hard because a lot of my betting process is like, hey, let's look at the numbers. Let's figure out what is the most efficient way of attacking. And there's not a lot of like science, I think, to, the early starts. It's a matter of kind of tossing a coin and just picking.
If you like to gamble, that's a good one for you. Apparently, what Shane's saying there. Dr. Earl Sean said, do you guys think the O-line is better than last year's?
I'm going to say no at this point, but I think it has the potential to be. I want to see what this looks like, mid-season down the line as these young tackles get more experience. I think James Daniels was probably better for you at that right guard spot. I think that would have made sense to keep him, but they had other ideas. Jason Peters was surprisingly better than I think what we all expected last year. But now you got some young guys and they're going to take some lumps. I don't think the Packers game was necessarily their best film. They had some moments that weren't so good. But I'm willing to give them some time here because they got some young guys. I think they have the potential to be better at the end of the year than what the Bears O-line was last year.
I think I don't really have anything else to add to that, John. That was a really good analysis. That is the way I think everyone should view it. Like, this is a work in progress with the young offensive line. It's going to get better as the year goes on. Okay, here. Shane, Kawhi said, do you think what the Dolphins are doing on offense is sustainable?
Yeah, I mentioned this on my podcast yesterday, and probably not. So I do have an MVP ticket on Tua, so I am rooting for it. It was 150-1. He's now 18-1, so I'm rooting for him, and I always root for Tua. But if you go back and watch that game, it was a lot of busted coverages late in the game, and honestly, Marcus Williams drops his third interception that would have ended the game. One play later, Tua hits Tyreek for a bomb that cuts it to a one-score game. So the Ravens probably should have won that game. But that's a defense that's learning a new system. Guys are just getting healthy. I felt like it was more the Ravens made a lot of mistakes and less so about the Dolphins. Now, Mike McDaniel's doing a great job using a lot of pre-snap motion, using a lot of play action, and they're finding ways to get the ball to, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But I don't see this being sustainable, especially this week against the Bills, who are ranked number 1 in defensive DVOA. So I would bet against it. I am betting the under for that reason in that game.
I'm really interested to see how the Miami Dolphins progress, simply because I want to know if the coaching change and the additions to that roster are the main reasons Tua is progressing, or if Tua is really taking the step. And I know that can be kind of a hard thing to be able to separate out, Sean, but it's a similar situation when you look at Justin Fields struggling with a new coaching staff, or struggling last year, now with a new coaching staff. Different situation where you have Mike McDaniel's, really someone highly respected as a young offensive mind, and you got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill there. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, with the change in scenery, I guess scenery is not the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say. I think you're right.
Change in coaching staff.
Someone save me. Yes.
Yeah. I think the big difference too is that Tua had a lot more snaps under his belt than Justin does at this point. Give him some more time to be out there on the field and to get some comfortability in this offense. And certainly, Tua's got way better weapons, way better protection. That all makes a big difference. Hopefully the Bears can bring in some help for Justin as you're looking toward the future here.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're going to obviously finish with some Bears-Texans predictions, which Robert Phillips simply asked. Predictions for Bears-Texans. Shane, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I already forgot what I said, so this is probably going to be not the same. But I think I said Bears 24, Texans 27, which would point towards the over. and the Bears spread. I agree with what you were trying to say earlier in that, this is not like they have to win type of thing, and they should somewhat take care of business against a team that is not projected to be a favorite in any game this season and projected to be the number one pick next year. Like, this is a game that you should win at home against the Texans. I know anything can happen in the NFL, but I would lean towards that happening, the Bears taking care of business.
Sean, how about you?
I'm thinking ugly. I have the Bears winning this 17-13. I've been too scarred by the offense we saw there for much of that Packers game, but I'm not as optimistic that they're going to put up a lot of points. But I do have the Bears winning. I'm
taking the Bears 27-17, and I'm being an optimist there because simply from a very what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry guys, I'm blanking on what I was going to say here. But essentially, I want some good football to watch, and if I have to watch another Bears bad offensive performance,
why are you going to Bears Texans to watch good football?
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, I have to watch the game. So like I'm going a high. I'm beating the over under there at 27-17. As Mike Johnson says, how many punts? There could be a few. But I'm going to say 27-17 because I really want to see this Bears offense perform better. They need to. I think it's going to get to be a real slog for Bear fans. It's going to become a negative attitude, and you worry about that hit principle, how quickly the Bears, or how long term the Bears can sustain playing a really sluggish offense and asking guys to give 100% maximum effort. They just have to perform better on offense. This is a team that they should be able to do it against. I do expect it this week. I think the Bears come out, move the ball pretty well. We get a 300-yard day total offense wise. I'm not sure if it's going to be more passing or running. But I think the Bears offense is going to look better this week. But with that, all right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here, guys. For Shane Jackson and Sean Hammond, I am Kyle Nabors. This is the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. Make sure you follow all three of us on Twitter. Make sure you follow Bears Insider on Twitter as well. Give the video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. Once again, that really helps us. And stick with us all weekend long at shawlocal.com as we get you ready and get you full coverage of Bears versus Texans. And with that, we will talk to you guys on Monday.